this video was requested by a subscriber. It's a video I'm honestly happy to do because it's one of my favorite topics, Star Wars. Obviously, Star Wars doesn't do as well as other videos, so I don't make as many Star Wars videos, but anytime I have a chance to really get in depth and analyze a Star Wars character, I'll take it. And so a member requested this. We're going to go ahead and do it. This is an examination of Legends Darth Vader, how strong he is, what he can pull off, what he's capable of, all that. If you like videos like these, please hit the like button, hit the notification button as well if you are subscribed. And if you have not subscribed to YFE, please go ahead and consider doing so. I make content like this on the regular. So with that being said, I'm going to be breaking down Darth Vader, what he brings to the table, and what I think his best traits are. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy, and let's begin. Now, Darth Vader, of course, for those that don't know, I'll give a brief backdrop. He belongs in the Star Wars verse, and originally he started out as Anakin Skywalker. Anakin, of course, was a young man found on the planet of Tatooine who was previously a child slave, and he was freed by a Jedi Master named Qui-Gon Jinn once Qui-Gon realized that Anakin indeed may very well be the child of prophecy. That is, the child to bring balance to the Force, therefore an asset to the Jedi. So, with that being said, he got the money to purchase Anakin and bring him out of slavery, but he didn't have enough to free Anakin's mom, which sets up a lot of conflict down the line, as Anakin is, forced to say, hey mom, I'll come back and get you when I'm strong enough, and he fails. Spoilers. Now, Anakin becoming a Jedi at the time was very unusual because of his age. Typically, the Jedi in the verse are basically toddlers when they go off to train at the temple. But Anakin was, nearly 10 years old. So when he came in, he was ridiculed by his peers, made fun of, ostracized, all that. But because of his insane force potential, he rapidly grew and progressed as a Jedi to the point that he very soon surpassed basically all his classmates. Anakin Skywalker would then go on throughout the series, and especially in the Clone Wars, to develop into one of the strongest Jedi we have ever seen. Physically, he was one of the most superior Jedi, blending the use of the Force to augment himself on top of his natural God-given gifts. On top of this, he was one of the most skilled duelists ever. Some of his most notable feats being he basically stalemated Kenobi when they fought on Mustafar, but not a lot of people understand. Anakin was basically winning that entire fight. Kenobi was on the back foot playing the defensive. Even though he's a defensive style character, he wasn't winning or really leading the battle. It was just he was smart enough to eventually find an opening, but he was losing that battle. Anakin also defeated Dooku after getting pissed off enough. Dooku having been able to consistently throughout the years hold his own against Yoda, Mace Windu. He's one of the top tier duelists of all time. So Anakin coming into this, and also when Anakin became Darth Vader and raided the temple and other Jedi homes, he was casually slaughtering masters with his blade. I mean, Anakin truly was one of the best duelists we have ever seen. Specifically, he specialized in the style known as Jim So. This is Form 5. This is essentially built upon the idea of having a very solid, staunch defense. And after playing defense, you retaliate with an even stronger offense than the one that was enforced upon you. So this style made Anakin, given his physicality and connection to the Force, very dangerous. And when he became Vader, which of course happened because he lost that duel to Obi-Wan, got chop sueyed, lost several limbs, had to be reconstituted by Sidious and his droids, and they put him in this kind of misshapen suit. It is a good suit, and it does get some enhancements later, but the suit was not made to its best potential because, in a way, Sidious was punishing Vader for failing, because the goal of Vader, of course, was to reach his full potential, surpass Sidious, and destroy everything, and rule as the Sith God, basically. But because he took that L, he lost a lot of his connection to the Force. So that's the first thing we're going to examine. How much raw power did Darth Vader lose upon taking the L? Of course, this is legend, so we're going to examine what was told to us after the event. First to examine is the 2 times the Emperor. So we were given a bit at some point, basically stating from Lucas himself that when you look at Vader, before he was compromised physically, he was supposed to eventually be 2 times as strong as Sidious. Now, what could Sidious do in Legends? Well, casually, he did eventually master the ability known as Force Storm. This allows him to conjure hyperspace wormholes, and he can do this throughout several star systems at the same time. And it stated at one point his Force Storms were so potent that if he had to, he could consume not only an entire fleet of Star Destroyers, but he could consume all of space itself. We'll lowball, let's say, that star system, anything like that. It's still he's casually compromising star systems with these massive black holes. There's also evidence of him being, if he chose to with lightning, capable of lighting up entire stars at the same time with single strikes of the lightning, branching it out. I'll show the art on screen for this. But yeah, so at bare minimum, solar system level at worst for Sidious, but what he should be is far beyond that. I'd say galaxy level, given he was giggling while threatening consumes all of space, to even universal if you want to. It depends on how you interpret it, but regardless, he went from twice that to 80% of that at his best, which would mean, I'd say Vader being well above star level is safe with that scaling. That's no problem at all. But then there's another form of scaling where we can look at what would Vader have been at his full potential regardless. I think it would have been more than 2 times, because we saw in the Clone Wars Anakin was able to manhandle son and daughter when he realized his potential, and kind of cucked them down with the Force. So I do think, although peak Legend Sidious was a beast, they actually at one point questioned if Sidious was the true Sithari, and I have the Sith book recovered by Luke that was written by Sidious. By the way, if you want a Legend Sidious video, hit the like button, hit the comment section too. But anyways, so looking at that puts Vader massively beyond that. True potential Vader actually does have arguments for outer reversal, given that the Force contains dualities, the Force transcends said dualities, and son and daughter are the living embodiments of the Force, and he was able to bolo them. And we saw in that Vader comic as well that at potential, without him being, compromised by his injuries, he ran through the Jedi Council like it was nothing, including Mace Windu and Yoda, casually tore apart Kenobi, and it just showed how strong he would have been if he didn't compromise himself. Probably would have been one of the strongest to ever exist. Legends Luke was a monster, Apoloth was a monster, Father was a monster as well, but true potential Anakin Vader had stake to the top 3 for sure. So let's look at what he actually was. We're going to operate off of at least star level, and it makes sense given that I believe Vader could smash someone like Nihilus, given if you can counter Nihilus' ability, which is the Force Drain, you can stomp him elsewhere because he doesn't really do anything else. He's kind of a one-trick pony. So when you look at that, given how high I already had Vader, this makes sense when I started examining it as him being bare minimum star level. Now, of course, for the newbies, I'm not saying Vader's going to crush a star. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he scales to characters that can or casually can do so. And in fact, it was stated when he woke up at his weakest point, because this is literally when he woke up with his injuries, confused, discombobulated. He had world-destroying fury and even tossed aside Sidious to the point that Sidious said, hey, look, if you do that again, I'm literally going to kill you. So that's how strong the power of Vader was. He's one of the only characters we've ever seen with the Force do anything to Sidious besides Yoda himself. Yoda, who in the Clone Wars era was able to casually combat a being who was stated to, with just their laugh, toss asteroids out of orbit casually. It's crazy. And it was the size of a mountain. Just the being itself was larger than a normal mountain. Insane. Final case for raw power you can make just popped in my mind actually comes from a character not really talked about, which is Car Vastor, who is like a clan brother to Mace Windu when they grew up on the same planet. Car Vastor was stated by Mace Windu to be the most fierce, dark, and formidable and most powerful opponent he's ever been across from. This would include the likes of having more raw power than Yoda and even young Anakin, right? Well, Car Vastor was encountered by another guy named Nick. Nick later on encounters Darth Vader and says Vader is more formidable than even Car Vastor back then. So you could make the case off of this that Vader even scales to the likes of a Yoda. Because I don't believe Yoda was Sidious level in terms of legend. Sidious was far beyond him later on in life. But if you look at that and take it for what it is, you can make the case Vader is up there with a Yoda or Dooku or Mace Windu in raw power. And that wouldn't, be crazy given all the other evidence we've been given prior. But I want to move on to something that really interests me when it comes to Vader, which is his lightsaber style and prowess. I think Vader is actually in some ways underrated as a duelist because he's not appreciated for what he built off of. So what I mean by that is, take Anakin for what he was as a skilled duelist back in his prime, right? We know, even if you went off statements from Nick, one of the main guys to do the dueling cinematography and choreography for the series, he stated Anakin, with him and George when they were working on it, was viewed as one of the best duelists ever. In fact, he's up there in the 9-10 range on a scale of 1 to 10, with someone like a Kenobi being an 8, Fringe 9, same with Dooku, and then like Mace, Yoda being 9s and 10s, Anakin being right there with them. So you already have one of the most prodigal duelists ever in the verse. And then he's made physically weaker, so he does lose a step. He's not as quick, but he is stronger. The cybernetics made him stronger, and he's a lot smarter. Vader realized he inhibited himself by taking that L. He lost some physical edges, some raw power, so he had to mentally reshape himself and reform his style. So you take a base of absolute skill, because Anakin's skill is slept on. People think he's just a raging, mindless, childish brat, but he's not. He was super skilled, and you take that baseline. Vader retained all his memory, all his skill. He can't replicate some of the moves because he's not as athletic as he was, but at the same time, he can do more now because he's more aware and he's smarter. He's a higher IQ fighter. So Vader took that high 9-10 base, lost an edge a little bit, but he built upon it. He became more diverse in his fighting style. He added things like Form 2. Form 2 is really good for one-on-one fencing. It's a fencing style, and you see him use that a lot. Makashi with his one-handed grip, kind of, flourishing with the blade, being very fancy. He added to his bag in terms of a duelist. Vader is a better duelist than Anakin. I don't think many people realize that. He's a more complete duelist, and Anakin already had a case easily for top 10 most skilled duelist ever. So when you look at that, I think Vader has a very strong case for one of the best duelists we've ever seen in Star Wars, and one of the best swordsmen in general, because he learned things even up to Form 7, and in order to learn Form 7, he had to have some mastery of all the other styles. We know for sure he's one of the best users of Form 5 ever. But then when he, edited his style, when he became Vader, to incorporate more use of the Force, really confusing you, discombobulating you. Best evidence of this is fight against Luke in movie 5. When you look at that and examine it for what it is, Vader has such an easy case to make for one of the best duelists ever. He was already one of those as Anakin, but matured and added to the bag later, making a case as one of the best duelists in, honestly, fiction. So, last thing we're really going to look at for Vader is something I think a lot of people don't touch on, which is his mentality, aura, and presence. This is a big deal for Vader because a lot of characters have the chance to lose against Darth Vader before a single strike is even thrown. So Vader is most famous worldwide for being an iconic villain, the menacing, tall, brooding, evil dictator that eventually you find out is the hero's father. He is a fallen, twisted hero turned, evil menace to the galaxy. You have all that, and what makes Vader so terrifying is he is 100% aware of that. He knows his place in the galaxy. He knows how dangerous he is, and he carries himself as such. The most badass Vader moment that comes to mind for Legends that I think really highlights his character is when he was surrounded by an entire army, and they made the mistake of shit talking my boy in the trenches, and they said, "Yo, we have you surrounded, Lord Vader. Just give up." Homeboy Vader looked around and said, "All I'm surrounded by is dead men and fear." I was like, oh shit. And then he folded them. So his persona is so crucial, but it's more than just intimidation tactics. There is actual tangible power behind what he's doing. You see, it's not a basic intimidation trick. He's using the Force passively to cast his evil, dominating aura. In fact, one Jedi Knight remarked that if you're not trained specifically in the spiritual and mental defense against evil, against the dark side of the Force, against getting your mind and presence broken by a formidable hatred, a palpable, actual force of nature, you're going to get folded by Vader just by him looking at you, just by him showing up and saying, "What's good?" You're going to get folded. So Vader even stepping to you is a dangerous character because of his passive aura he generates, given how much raw hatred he has. See, emotion matters in the Force. When you use the Force, emotion can often either hamper you or boost you. When you're raging, the Sith can use this to boost themselves significantly. Jedi use love sometimes to pull out the W. Or they can weaponize hate as well. We saw Kenobi fight better against Maul once he saw Qui-Gon fall and he was raging. Emotions can be tamed and weaponized with the Force, and Vader's one of the strongest ever, to the point that it became passive for him. So overall, Darth Vader is one of the scariest combatants in Star Wars because of his versatility. He still has raw power, as I demonstrated with him at worst being 80% up to what Sidious was and what that could really mean. But overall, he's as skilled as it gets. He's one of the top in the Force usage, versatility with the Force, mentality, IQ, just inverse. Vader stacks up against most people, and it makes him a formidable opponent across the board. So in the end, you really have to respect Darth Vader for what he brings to the table in Legends, as far as being well above star level, easily with scaling off Sidious, and being one of the best duelists ever. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, let me know. If you like videos like these where I break down characters, hit the subscribe, like button, anything you can to support. If you want to become a member of me and Chuck's community server, comment down below. I'll tell you how to begin the process for that. Saves you a lot of money to go through me than it is through YouTube. But anyways, guys, it's been your boy, YFE. If you haven't seen Dante vs. Kratos, go check it out and run the views up on that. If it does well, we're going to run it back with composites of both characters. But yeah, it's been a long time. The video's been long as it is, so I'm going to let y'all go. But anyways, it's been your boy, YFE, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.